And today's top trender, hot air.
Climate change should be a top priority when 75% of your constituents live near the coast.
Continue to improve our environment. We're going to have long-term solutions.
Rick Scott's environmental plan ignores climate change.
He would recommend $500 million for water projects over the 10 years.
One of the most strategic investments we can make is our natural resources.
Florida is going to be plagued with flooding, coastal erosions, a heat index of an increase between 8 and 15% in the next 100 years.
I'm not a scientist.
We care about our climate here. We care about keeping our Florida beautiful.
Joining us tonight, Mitch Cesar, chairman of the Broward County Democratic Party and the DNC executive board member. Mitch, you know, when I saw this story come out about Governor Rick Scott, I thought this is just a big curveball to the voters. He's never shown any interest at all in climate change or anything environmentally whatsoever. This is, I don't know, I think this is a desperation pitch. How do you view it?
Well, I think you're exactly right. In 2010, when he ran for the first time, he was a climate denier. Now he still is, but he's kind of hiding out and trying to avoid it by saying, you know, I'm not a scientist. And as I've talked about it before, but he is the governor. And I think a couple of things have dictated why he's kind of in hiding. The first is that he realizes, you know, Florida's a peninsula surrounded by three bodies of water, and we're the third largest state. He also realizes something else. The insurers that have to insure homes and commercial buildings on the coast in Florida are raising their rates dramatically, or they're pulling out of the market entirely. This isn't a political decision. This is an actuarial decision. This is a common sense decision. There's one other reason that he's hiding out, and that's what I call monetary geography, political dollars. And what that means specifically is most of the homes on the coast, whether coming from Miami Beach heading north through Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach, and all the way up the coast, are very, very expensive. As you know, anywhere you live on the water, it's more money. Well, who lives on these multi-million-dollar estates? People with a lot of money, rich folks generally, and they're mostly Republican. Well, they're squawking because they're saying, my property's endangered, my taxes, my values are going through the sky, or I can't get an insurer, and you're doing nothing but hiding. He's afraid of losing them while still kowtowing to the Tea Party and being a denier.
So this whole thing is really being spearheaded by what's unfolding in the insurance industry. I mean, the insurance industry, as you say, from an actuarial standpoint, is taking a look at what their losses are going to be if somebody doesn't do something about the environment. So here comes Rick Scott, concerned about big business, concerned about, you know, exactly what his base and his fundraising is going to be. So he better come up with an environmental plan. Is that how it's coming down?
Yes, exactly. And the joke of that is his environmental plan is to say, I'm going to protect the Florida Keys and I'm going to protect other areas, but those are the very places that are susceptible to climate change and rising seas. So he's saying that on one hand. In fact, a report came out that he issued and never said a word, never used the phrase global warming, because he has to keep the Tea Party folks happy while still kind of hiding on the denial side. So he's come up with a political answer, non-answer.
So this is environmental light is what it is. He can't say climate change. He can't say global warming because he's going to infuriate one party that won't believe in him. On the other hand, he's got to take care of an industry that has really done the numbers. And I mean, it seems to me that the insurance industry is a believer in climate change, and at least they certainly don't want to take the risk on the coastal state of Florida. So how does Charlie Crist play into this? What is turn with? What is his position on this, Mitch?
Well, he himself has said that, you know, he is a believer in climate change. And indeed, when he was the governor of Florida previously, he had made some very well-received, progressive comments. And even in the acquisition of land in environmentally sensitive areas, to buy the land, because in this case, U.S. Sugar was dumping a lot of overflow, in effect, and jeopardizing the Everglades. So he's had a pretty positive record, even when he was governor previously.
Well, about the sugar industry, Rick Scott, understand, cut some flack as of late for a recent hunting trip that he took with U.S. Sugar's King Lodge. And, of course, as you just said, U.S. Sugar has been a big donor to Scott, has been a big donor to Scott. But when you consider the phosphorus pollution the sugar industry has caused in the Everglades, allegedly, what does this say about his political and environmental intentions?
Well, he took this political junket, and his defense was, oh, I didn't spend taxpayer money because I took my own private jet. But what's interesting is when he returned from this junket, he then appointed one of the vice presidents of this particular ranch in Texas, this particular lobby group, in effect, to one of the most sensitive boards for the environment in Florida, the South Florida Water Management District, which is one of the most critical environmental boards, not only in the state, but probably in the country because of its effect on the Everglades. So he did that, and then he also did something else. And what he did was he decided to tell U.S. Sugar, hey, you have a gigantic economic responsibility to restore the Everglades, and some of the places have been polluted by your own admission, to restore them to its natural habitat. But I'm going to save you millions and millions of dollars, so you don't have to do that. And, of course, this was on a constitutional amendment in Florida that said they're responsible for environmental land. So I guess the trip was well worth it for U.S. Sugar.
The guy is amazing at covering his tracks. There's no question about it. Mitch Cesar, good to have you with us tonight. We'll follow the story in Florida. It is